Captain America Brave New World is out in theaters now. I have a spoiler-free review for you guys out on the channel. I will leave that link at the end of this video for you guys to see if you don't want to be spoiled for Captain America Brave New World, because this is going to be my spoiler review, spoiler talk, whatever you might want to call it, for Captain America Brave New World. If you don't care about spoilers, if you haven't seen the movie, or if you have seen the movie and you want to hear more about my thoughts on Captain America Brave New World, welcome to the spoiler review. This is going to be like very similar to a lot of my other spoiler reviews. Sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. It depends on how many topics I have to talk about with a certain movie, but we're going to break this up into topics. It's not going to be essentially a rundown from beginning to end. I might jump around here and there, but we are going to talk about some topics. There's going to be a lot to talk about with Captain America Brave New World. Not as much as some other Marvel movies, but there is a decent amount to talk about with Captain America Brave New World, and so I want to get right into it. Let's talk some spoilers for Captain America Brave New World with our first topic. So I think there's been rampant speculation about whether or not Bucky Barnes is actually in the movie, and I can confirm, yes, Bucky is in the movie. No, he does not have a substantial role. Sebastian Stan makes a cameo, and I'm wondering to myself if that was actually part of the reshoots. I wonder if Bucky was even in the plans for this movie, because it doesn't really make sense to me if he wasn't. Even in a cameo capacity, it is strange to me that it is just a cameo capacity, but it was by far the best scene in the entire movie. But before I get back into that, let me just talk about what I was about to talk about, because I feel like, okay, Bucky's gonna be in Thunderbolts, all right? So I get maybe trying to save Bucky and not overexpose Bucky a lot with 2 movies in a row with this one and Thunderbolts, but at the same time, he was just in the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show. I get that now the Falcon is Joaquin Torres, Captain America is Sam Wilson. Sam Wilson might have more of an emotional connection to Joaquin Torres rather than Bucky, even though Bucky is his friend and he was Steve Rogers' friend. I mean, there's reasons why Steve Rogers passed the mantle on to Sam Wilson. And there's reasons why Bucky Barnes believes that Sam Wilson is the correct choice for Captain America. So it is a bit strange to me that he is not in this movie, much as he should be, beyond a cameo. But you know what? At least he's in it. He's in it for a scene. At least he's acknowledged. That's really all I can ask for with Bucky at this point, and it's the best scene in the entire movie. It does raise some questions, though, for Thunderbolts, because essentially what happens is that Joaquin Torres gets hurt and is in critical condition after the Battle of Tiamat in the movie, and Bucky arrives at the hospital to console Sam Wilson, and he essentially has this conversation about whether or not he is Steve Rogers or not, and what Steve actually thought of Sam Wilson, or something along those lines. I'm trying to jot my memory on that, but it's by far the best scene in the movie. It's the most well-shot scene in the movie. It's the most heartfelt scene in the movie, and I get that the themes that the scene is trying to play out seem a bit repetitive at this point, but I feel like everything with a Captain America movie at this point is gonna feel a little bit repetitive, but it did feel like it was the emotional crux, the heart and soul of the movie. That scene really struck a chord with me, and the moment that it happened, the moment it started and the moment it ended, or I should say, maybe not the moment it started, but the moment that Bucky popped up, I knew it was going to be the best scene in the entire movie, and it was. It was really a scene sandwiched between 2 giant action scenes that were awesome, and this scene just made the last 45 minutes, those 2 action scenes, the Tiamat action scene and Red Hulk versus Cap, really feel like this is a cohesive movie compared to the first half. That's why I was saying in my review that I thought the last 45 minutes of this movie were actually really worthwhile and really entertaining and really enjoyable. And it felt like, to me, it felt like a different director had directed this entire second half of the movie other than Julius Ona. But I digress. Still the best scene in the entire movie. And what's revealed here is that Bucky is running as a congressman, so he's running for office. So how is that going to affect Thunderbolts? Because he's with the team in Thunderbolts. He's with Yelena. He's with John Walker. He's with Red Guardian. He's with Ghost. He's with Taskmaster. I want to know, are they going to bring that up in Thunderbolts? I have no idea. Are they even going to acknowledge it, or is Bucky just going to be like, yeah, no, that didn't happen? Maybe he loses the election to become congressman and goes back to being a mercenary for hire. Who knows? But this was by far the best scene in the movie, and I feel like even I wish Bucky was in it in a much bigger capacity. But just to have Bucky in here, or at least to acknowledge Bucky, there had to at least be one scene with Bucky, and I don't know if it was in the original plans, but I am happy that that scene was there. All right, let's talk about the main villain of the movie, the leader. This is tying up loose ends from the Incredible Hulk from 2008. I almost said 2017, so I'm thinking 17 years later for the Incredible Hulk. But yeah, the leader to me was kind of a weak villain. It was nice to see Tim Blake Nelson back as the leader. I like that nice little through thread because sometimes they recast actors as villains or actors in general. Like Emma Furman was recast with Catherine Newton for Cassie Lang. Ross Marquand, he replaced Hugo Weaving as Red Skull. You see what they do here sometimes, like Mark Ruffalo replaced Edward Norton as Bruce Banner and the Hulk. You catch my drift. So it was nice to have Tim Blake Nelson come back and be the leader, be the character that the Incredible Hulk set him up when the gamma radiation fell on his head and it started to make his head all swell. They didn't do it necessarily comic accurate. I did think the prosthetics actually looked pretty good. It wasn't a CGI head on the leader, so that's good. But I just felt that overall he was very underwhelming. He's more of a behind the scenes type of guy. The big thing with him is that he's the reason everything is happening. He's the reason why Isaiah Bradley tries to assassinate President Thaddeus Ross, played by Harrison Ford. He jumpstarts this entire plot. I just thought that he felt so much more behind the scenes, like or they were trying to make him like do stuff that Baron Zemo did. There were so many instances where I was like, this is definitely echoing what Baron Zemo did in Civil War. Like when he's randomly going up to people's houses, he's murdering people, shooting them in the head. Like I was like, this is definitely Baron Zemo stuff. And Zemo should have been, oh man, Zemo underrated, a very underrated villain. I'll tell you that. But that's not my main problem with the leader. I just felt like it's Tim Blake Nelson. The guy has a bit of range to him. He does play the part well. I just think he's underutilized since he is behind the scenes. I'm not really big on the behind the scenes villains in movies. I mean, there's a couple of exceptions, like Palpatine is really a behind the scenes villain in Star Wars. He has Vader at the front lines for him, and then Vader's the one that reports to Palpatine, and Palpatine's like, the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some considered to be unnatural. It works in that capacity, but here I just wanted the leader to be more at the front lines, and I just didn't like how he was utilized in that regard with the movie, and I didn't really like his overall storyline. The big reason he's getting revenge and setting off this entire thing and brainwashing people is that he's pissed off at Ross because Ross put him in prison and planned to exonerate him, but that actually never happened. So now he's executing his plan and he's gonna turn Ross into the Red Hulk because he's giving Ross these pills that are actually filled with gamma radiation because Ross is dying. And this actually should be saved for when I talk about Thaddeus Ross. I guess I could lump them together. I don't know, but that's a huge reason why the leader is doing what he's doing, and it's so obvious too that there's something other than Isaiah Bradley that is pulling the strings behind the scenes. Like Isaiah Bradley seems like the most humble guy. When you see him in The Falcon and Winter Soldier, and when you see him in this movie, he seems like he's just, yeah, you want to hang out with him, and you know that there's something wrong. The camera doesn't even pan away when he starts his assassination attempt on Ross, and he and the others start their assassination attempt on Ross. It's like clear as day, in camera, center frame. There's no suspense built up to it, but you know that there's something going on. And it's all because of the leader, Samuel Stearns. And everything with Samuel Stearns, almost every scene he's in, until about half his scenes are over, he's just in the shadows. It's like, dude, come on out. We know what you look like. We already know who you are. We know what you look like. At least the comic book nerds know what he looks like. The MCU nerds know what he looks like. Maybe casual audiences who haven't seen The Incredible Hulk for 17 years don't know what he looks like or don't even remember this guy. And if you don't, that's why I feel like his presence wasn't that felt throughout the movie. It's like, you got to make him as menacing as possible. Make people fear this guy. Make people go back and watch The Incredible Hulk and remember this guy. And I didn't have that feeling with the leader. I just felt that everything was a bit half baked, which is why I think he wasn't as strong as a villain as they thought. And I think the villains lately in Marvel have been pretty weak. I think they have a villain problem yet again. All right, Sidewinder, complete waste of time in the movie. The first 45 minutes really involves Sidewinder, Serpent Society. This is where I thought the movie was the most jumbled, because here's the thing. Serpent Society is hired by Samuel Stearns, or the leader, whatever you want to call him, as outside mercenaries to steal this canister of adamantium. Yeah, that's right. There's adamantium revealed in this movie. The Celestial Tiamat, what they call Celestial Island in this, that hasn't been addressed since Eternals, and everybody was begging them to address Tiamat because everybody was like, well, we're through 6 Marvel movies now. Is nobody not going to acknowledge that there's a giant celestial sticking out of the earth? And they finally address it, and now people are like, why are they addressing it in the Captain America? It's not a win-win situation for these people, is it? But apparently, on the celestial island of Tiamat, there is adamantium. And I actually knew this going in. I didn't look online for this. This was one of the scenes that they revealed to us in San Diego Comic-Con. They showed an extended trailer, extended footage of the movie, and this was part of it. So I knew that going in, when this scene was happening, when Ross is briefing all the world leaders about adamantium on Tiamat, I knew that, oh, hey, adamantium's being introduced to the MCU. There's this arms race to get the adamantium and this peace treaty involving the adamantium, but this arm race involves Serpent Society and Sidewinder. This Giancarlo Esposito is a great actor, but I felt like he reading off of a teleprompter, or they AI his voice, because he sounded very robotic and very stoic and just very out of the ordinary. It didn't even sound like Giancarlo Esposito. His facial expression is just so blank the entire movie. This is where the fight scenes for me, like there's this opening action scene, that one clip where you see Sam fighting that big heavy dude. I don't know his name. They don't really bring up their names. That fight scene that everybody criticized that looked too slow, too clunky. Yeah, it does. That's the opening action scene of the movie. I was like, so Serpent Society is definitely gonna be a big part of this movie, right? It's really just those opening first 45 minutes, because after that sequence, then after the assassination attempt on Ross, Sam Wilson's driving, and all of a sudden Sidewinder just attacks him. This feels so out of the blue. You could tell that this is tacked on. You could tell that this is part of the reshoots, that they had other material here that they didn't think necessarily worked, and they replaced it with Serpent Society, and it doesn't even work here. And the funny thing is, here's the funny thing. There was that joke when they announced Captain America Civil War that it was going to be called Captain America Serpent Society. And then the joke was, oh, wait, no, it's actually not. It's actually Captain America Civil War, one of the more famous Captain America storylines in the comics. And I get that the Serpent Society is part of Captain America's like villainous rogues gallery, and that was the joke back then when they announced Civil War. But now that they actually seriously put Serpent Society in to the movie, and I just feel like if you're gonna do that, make Serpent Society the main villains, make Sidewinder the main villain. If I don't know how it is in the comics, you guys know me with these movies. I'm not very well versed in the comics. I do some background, but not like extensive background. Like I just have like the baseline knowledge of what is actually in the comics. So if Sidewinder is the leader of Serpent Society in the comics, they really did him dirty, if you ask me. They did the entire Serpent Society dirty. This could have been a Captain America movie about Serpent Society. Maybe they'll bring Serpent Society back and Sidewinder back in future Captain America movies. If there are going to be future Captain America movies, depends on box office. I think it's going to make some money. I think they're going to do it. They're setting Sam up to be the leader of the new Avengers team anyways. So maybe they won't do Serpent Society so dirty then, but it just felt like this whole thing that was tacked on. It just felt like a replacement for material that didn't necessarily work in their eyes. And the material that they have with Sidewinder, Serpent Society doesn't work in the movie. And maybe what they had before would have worked better. Who knows? I don't know. You can tell the first 45 minutes that that's where a lot of the extensive reshoots went. The writing just feels so much more clunkier than it does. It feels so much more messier than it does in the second half. So I think that that's kind of how Serpent Society is presented in the movie. It's just very haphazard and clunky and messy, and just they don't feel like they belong in this movie. All right, let's talk some Thaddeus Ross, because Thaddeus Ross for me was one of the highlights of the movie. Every time it cut back to Harrison Ford as Thaddeus Ross, I was like, Harrison Ford is giving it his all. And going back to kind of what I was alluding to with the leader Samuel Stearns and him giving Ross some pills, like Ross has seemed to have like lightened his stance on the Avengers. Like he's the one calling for Sam to reform the Avengers, and then the assassination attempt happens, and there's hostility there between them, because there always is between Ross and the Avenger members of the Avengers. Like, come on, face it. But it is interesting though that later on in the movie that it is revealed that yeah, this shit happened between Ross and Samuel Stearns. He promised Samuel Stearns something, he didn't deliver. Now Samuel Stearns is getting back at him, and the reason is because there's that scene from Black Widow is key here, because there's a scene in Black Widow with when William Hurt was still alive and he was playing Thaddeus Ross, where I think in Black Widow, if my mind serves me correctly, there's that scene where he mentions to Natasha that he's either dying or he has cancer, or it's very alluded to. I don't know if it's explicitly said, but that's kind of alluded to here, because Samuel Stearns is essentially giving Thaddeus Ross pills, but these pills are filled with gamma radiation. So they're filling his body with gamma radiation because he said he was dying. He was having heart failure. So he was taking these pills without knowing that there's gamma radiation injected inside of these pills. And that's how he turns into Red Hulk. He has to harbor that anger that he's having. There's a scene during the battle on Tiamat where he is about to rage out, but he harbors it. He holds it in, and it's not until the White House press conference where he turns into Red Hulk. It's kind of interesting too, because Betty Ross, I had heard, was actually going to be a major part of this movie. Like, Liv Tyler, I thought was actually going to be in the movie a lot more than just one scene and one voiceover phone call. But then the thing is that she had a falling out with her father, and they don't really talk to each other all that much anymore. And then he gets on the phone with her, apologizes to her for everything, and then there's like this voice recording of her voice of him talking to her. So I was like, oh, okay, so it's just a cameo for Betty Ross. Liv Tyler's just gonna have a voice cameo. And then after everything that happens, when he puts himself in the raft, declares that he is not the president anymore, Betty Ross actually shows up. Like, Liv Tyler actually shows up in person in the raft and talks to him. I was like, am I back in 2008? Like, where are we right now? Just so you know, Thunderbolt Ross, that is not your daughter. That is Eowyn, and her loyalties still lie with Aragorn. But it was really surprising to actually just have her in one scene. More surprising, after that phone call, after that voiceover, that I thought that she would actually pop up in the movie. I was like, okay, that voice is her cameo, but no, she has that one scene with with her father, Thaddeus Ross, and it ties up loose ends between them, and it ties up their relationship in a nice little bow. I thought that that was actually really well done. So Red Hulk, let's talk some Red Hulk, because everybody's going into this movie talking about Red Hulk, how Red Hulk is in the movie. Only for 5 to 10 minutes, as I said in my spoiler-free review. Red Hulk is all over the marketing, but I understand why, honestly. Like, you have to sell this movie somehow. You have to be able to put asses in seats instead of just being like, oh yeah, there's nothing really surprising here. But can you imagine, though, the surprise that this movie would have if we didn't know Thaddeus Ross turned into Red Hulk and there wasn't a Red Hulk versus Captain America fight at the end of this movie? It's awesome, though. I actually did really like the fight. The CGI needed a little bit of cleaning up, but it looked better than it did in the trailer. Like, I'm at that point where it doesn't really bother me anymore. Like, it's noticeable, but it's not like, it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb to me. Like, if it did, I'd say that. but it doesn't. This is a really fun fight. I like that they actually got the facial features of Harrison Ford on the Hulk himself. Like, it looks like Harrison Ford as a giant Hulk. Like, he has like the scar on his chin. I was like, oh, that's a nice little detail to add. They didn't have to do that, and they totally did. The fight's awesome. The whole time I was wondering how Sam was actually going to beat him. He doesn't take the super soldier serum, but his gear is made out of Wakanda tech, which I kind of call bullshit on, because I'm like, is it really that strong to withstand a Hulk? I mean, Iron Man had the Hulk Buster stuff, but is Wakanda tech stronger? I guess so. I mean, Wakanda tech is like otherworldly. So I guess it can withstand everything I know about Wakanda. It can withstand it, I guess. So there we go. I guess that's how Sam's gonna beat Red Hulk in this scenario. It's a really fun, really entertaining fight. I do like the way that Sam actually tries to get an emotionality out of Red Hulk by bringing him to the cherry blossom park that he and his daughter used to go to. They used to walk through a field of cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C., and that's where the final confrontation with Red Hulk actually happens. That's how Sam Wilson is actually able to calm him down. That was actually a nice little tie back to the relationship between Thaddeus Ross and his daughter that I thought actually worked really well. Another thing I really liked about this Red Hulk scene was that it was nice to finally see a Hulk smash, and Hulk clap and just destroy everything in his sight. Billions of dollars of property damage are caused by Red Hulk in this movie. He even takes out the White House. It was glorious to see him just destroying everything in his path, just causing billions of dollars in property damage and having no regard for civilian life. It's been a while. It has been a while. I was on the defense for the way that they were writing Mark Ruffalo's Hulk lately in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to the point where I sat down in She-Hulk and I was like, I don't really vibe with him anymore. And then it gets to this movie and I'm like, that's the Hulk I want to see. Now Mark Ruffalo's Hulk looks like a complete pansy compared to Red Hulk. This is what I want. Bring this back with Mark Ruffalo, please. Bring this shit back. It's been a long time. I feel like it's been since either Ragnarok or the beginning of Infinity War, where we actually saw Hulk smash shit. And it made sense in Infinity War that he was like scared of Thanos. I mean, I'd be scared of Thanos too. But that was the beginning of the end for me with Hulk. And it just now, like, it makes me actually legitimately angry that they've treated Mark Ruffalo's Hulk like that. And I don't actually think Mark Ruffalo's been playing the Hulk all that well lately. I haven't really liked it since Ragnarok. So to see Red Hulk just smash and bash his way through Washington, D.C. with no regard for anything, it was nice to see Hulk just beating the living shit out of everything. All right, and the post-credit scene. The post-credit scene, there was only one, and that is Sam Wilson talking to the leader in the raft. And it's one of those things that's just trying to move the multiverse forward, but it's everything we've heard before in the multiverse. Like, to me, I was just like, this is just an okay scene. Like, everybody says it's a bad scene. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but it's just repetitive because the leader talks to Sam Wilson and he just keeps saying, there are others. They are coming. There is a massive threat from another world. The others from the other world. It's like, okay, we know what you're talking about. It's the multiverse. Like, you don't have to lay it on so thick, I guess. We're not that stupid to figure out that the threat is from the multiverse. We know that you're talking about Doctor Doom, or at least the Robert Downey Jr. version of Doom, whether it is Doctor Doom or not. If it's just a Tony Stark variant that became Doom, who knows? We'll see in Avengers Doomsday. We all know that that's what's happening. And I feel like throughout all these multiverse shenanigans, like, people are going to be happy that we're finally addressing stuff, because the multiverse saga for a lot of people has just been kind of scattershot all over the place. Like, are we actually doing multiverse shenanigans? And when we do multiverse shenanigans, it's like, oh, we've had enough of it. Like, stop it. I don't really get people anymore. People will probably be happy with this post-credit scene, but at the same time, they'll be like, Yeah, no shit. He's talking about Doctor Doom. We all know that. This isn't a secret anymore. They're treating it like it's this big secret, like it's this big thing that nobody knows about. It's like, we know who it is. Stop trying to treat us like we're stupid. So it's an okay scene. It's not the greatest post-credit scene, but I mean, people saying that it sucks, I mean, no, it's not worthless. It is setting up what's to come. It's just we already know what's coming, and they're just laying it on way too thick. All right, guys, so that is my spoiler review for Captain America Brave New World. What did you think about the aspects of the movie? Maybe you can lay it on spoiler free in the comments. Maybe some things I didn't talk about that you really liked in the movie. Of course, I didn't get to everything. I never do in these spoiler reviews. But whatever your thoughts on the movie, whatever your favorite part of the movie is, spoiler thoughts in the comments below are welcome. I will leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.